The first time Maria stepped into Bayridge's shooting range, she didn't look like much. She wore a faded flannel shirt tucked into a pair of well-worn jeans, the kind you buy second-hand and break in over a decade. Her boots were scuffed, her fingers calloused, and her brown hair was pulled into a practical bun that had probably taken 5 seconds to throw together. She didn't come with a gun case or fancy gear. Just a beat-up duffel bag slung over her shoulder and a quiet look in her eyes that said she'd seen things she wasn't about to talk about. Most people barely noticed her walk in. Those who did gave her the kind of once-over you reserve for someone who clearly didn't belong. Bayridge wasn't just a shooting range, it was a private club. A place where money flowed as freely as arrogance. Retired CEOs in tailored tactical vests, trust fund adrenaline junkies with customized rifles that cost more than cars, and ex-military guys who had more ego than service records. Everyone had something to prove. Everyone had an audience to impress. And Maria, well, she just didn't look like their kind. "You lost, sweetheart," a voice called out from the benches near the observation deck. It belonged to Bryce, a tall, lean man with gelled hair, a smug grin, and a sniper rifle imported from Germany. He was flanked by his usual entourage, Chad, Logan, and Travis. They always came together, always laughed a little too loud, always made the range feel like a country club with bullets. Maria glanced at him briefly, but said nothing. She just walked over to one of the public benches and began unzipping her bag. "Oh no," Chad said with a chuckle. "She's not lost. She's here to teach us a lesson. Or maybe her husband is on his way." More laughter. Maria pulled out an old M40 rifle. Military issue. Scratched. Dented. But clean. Taken care of like it meant something. She started assembling it with practiced hands. Logan leaned in to whisper loudly enough for her to hear. "I swear I saw that exact rifle in a museum once. Right next to a display on ancient warfare." Maria adjusted the sling. Said nothing. The range officer, Rick, an ex-Marine who now spent his days watching over the lanes, walked past and gave her a nod. He recognized the rifle, or maybe just the way she held it. "You need a target setup?" he asked. Maria gave a small nod. 200 yards. Iron plate. Clean backdrop. Rick paused. 200. "You sure?" She met his gaze. "I'm sure." He shrugged and walked off to make the arrangements. Bryce scoffed. "That old thing probably doesn't even shoot straight at 20. I give her 2 shots before she gives up," said Travis, sipping an energy drink like it was fine wine. Maria lay down on the prone mat. Her movements were deliberate, efficient. No wasted energy. She didn't even bother with ear protection. Just closed her eyes for a second. Breathed. Then she opened them, adjusted the scope, and placed a single round in the chamber. But she didn't fire. She waited. The air was thick with laughter and condescension, the kind that dripped off every word the group threw her way. They weren't cruel, not really. Just comfortable in their place, their image, their assumptions. And Maria? She was the static in the background. A curiosity. A footnote. Nobody knew where she came from. Nobody asked. She didn't offer. She fired once. The sound wasn't loud. But it was sharp. Precise. Clang. Rick, downrange, raised an eyebrow behind his binoculars. She split the dead center, he muttered. Bryce and the boys didn't hear him. Or maybe they didn't care. Beginner's luck, Bryce said with a smirk. Even a broken clock's right twice a day. Maria stayed prone. Loaded another round. Fired again. Clang. Then again. Clang. And again. Clang. Rick looked up. Whistled low under his breath. Son of a. Chad stood now, watching her, a nervous laugh bubbling in his throat. Alright, okay. She got 4. That's cute. Maybe she's been practicing. Maria didn't stop. Every shot was the same. Calm. Rhythmic. Intentional. She hit the dead center of a 200-yard plate 11 times in a row. Not a single miss. By the 12th shot, a small crowd had started to gather. People who'd ignored her before now watched in silence. Even Bryce had gone quiet, arms crossed tightly, jaw tense. Then she stood, casually packing up the rifle like she hadn't just outshot half the range. Bryce tried to recover with a sneer. You got a name, cowgirl? Maria glanced at him. Something flickered in her eyes, something old and cold and dangerous, but her voice was calm. Just Maria. Then she walked out, leaving behind nothing but silence and a line of perfect hits downrange. Nobody knew that back in another life, Maria had worn a different name. One whispered in war zones. One etched into the walls of military outposts in distant countries. One that earned medals they didn't bother to send her. But that was long ago. Now, she just wanted peace. Too bad peace was the last thing Bay Ridge would give her. By the following weekend, everyone at Bay Ridge had heard the story. The woman with the thrift store flannel. The beat-up M40. The 11 for 11 miracle on the 200-yard plate. Some said she was ex-military. Others guessed she was FBI, or maybe a retired assassin. The more the tale passed from mouth to mouth, the wilder it became. But the one thing everyone agreed on. Maria wasn't to be underestimated. Except Bryce. If anything, Maria's performance had bruised something in him that he wasn't ready to admit, ego, pride, or maybe just the fear that someone like her could make someone like him look like a fool. He spent the week planning his return, gathering his friends, picking his weapons like a knight prepping for a duel. He wasn't going to let some mystery woman be the talk of the range. Not at his range. When Maria returned, again in that quiet, unassuming way, it was like nothing had changed. She walked in alone. Same rifle, same duffel. No swagger. No fanfare. Just her quiet presence, like a shadow that belonged more to the land than the people walking on it. Bryce spotted her immediately. He was already suited up, polished boots, tactical gear that looked like it came from a catalog shoot, and a new custom-built rifle he called Justice. Sleek, chrome barrel. Carbon fiber stock. Enough modifications to make it look like it belonged on a spaceship. Back for another miracle, Maria, he called out, loud enough for the whole place to hear. Maria paused mid-step. Looked at him. Then kept walking to her lane without a word. She's not even gonna say hello, Chad snorted, shaking his head. How rude. Maria began setting up. She brought with her only a small container of hand-loaded rounds, each one marked with a faint scratch on the base. She had loaded them herself, like she always did. Each one was hers. Her fingerprint. Her story. Bryce wasn't about to let her go unnoticed this time. He sauntered over to her lane, holding his rifle like a showpiece. Tell you what, he said with a smug smile. Let's make things interesting today. Maria didn't look up. I'm not here for a game. It's not a game. It's a challenge, Bryce said, grinning like a teenager who thought he was clever. 100 yards. 5 shots. Tightest grouping wins. Maria remained still for a moment. Then she looked at him, really looked at him. Like she was trying to figure out whether this man was worth the oxygen he was spending. You want a competition? Unless you're scared. She set her rifle down. Stood slowly. You pick the target. Bryce motioned to Rick, the range officer. Get us some of those nice paper silhouettes. Fresh ones. Let's do this properly. A small crowd started to form. Word always spread quickly when egos were on the line. Rick sighed but complied. He didn't like where this was going. He knew Maria was no amateur. There was something in the way she moved, the way she treated her weapon like it was alive, sacred. And Bryce. Bryce just wanted a show. Targets were set. Lanes cleared. Bryce shot first. Each round cracked through the silence like a firecracker. His grouping was tight, to be fair, for in the center mass, one just above the heart. He turned with a grin. Beat that. Maria stepped up without a word. No fancy stance. No dramatic pause. She took her shot slowly. Methodically. Pop. 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 Rick checked both targets. Walked back slowly. The murmurs started before he even said a word. Maria's grouping wasn't just tight, it was surgical. All 5 rounds were clustered so close they looked like one ragged hole in the center of the chest. He didn't say who won. He didn't have to. Bryce's smile slipped for the first time. Later, in the lounge area of the range, the boys regrouped. Their laughter was thin, forced. Bryce was fuming behind his glass of bourbon. "She's sandbagging," Logan muttered. "She wants us to underestimate her." "No," Bryce said coldly. "She's mocking us. Playing some long game. Probably ex-military. Probably dishonorably discharged or something. People like her don't just show up out of nowhere." He was silent for a moment, then looked up. "We find out who she is." "You serious?" "I'm not letting some wannabe sniper embarrass me in my own club." What Bryce didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that Maria had already seen this unfold in a dozen different ways, in places far darker than Bay Ridge. Arrogant men with too much pride and too little experience. Men who confused confidence with competence. And men like that always made the same mistake. They underestimated the quiet ones. That night, Maria sat alone at her small apartment on the outskirts of town. She kept no photos on the wall. Just a folded American flag in a glass case on the mantel, and a lockbox hidden under the floorboards with a coin, a patch, and a discharge paper nobody had read in 15 years. Her phone buzzed once. A name flashed on the screen, Colby. She stared at it for a moment before picking up. "You were right," came the voice on the other end. "They're starting to notice." Maria leaned back, closing her eyes. "I'm not here to fight," she whispered. "Maybe not," Colby said. "But they're picking one." The next weekend, Maria didn't show up. Bay Ridge shooting range felt different without her. The usual noise was there, rounds cracking downrange, brass clinking onto the concrete, laughter echoing off the walls, but there was a tension in the air. A silence between conversations. As if people were waiting for something they didn't quite understand. Bryce wasn't waiting, though. He was preparing. Over the past week, he had done what he did best, dug into places he didn't belong. Through contacts, online forums, and a few favors pulled from retired military buddies, he'd finally gotten a name. Not Maria. Sable. No last name. Just a call sign. A myth, if the stories were to be believed. Sable was a ghost. A sniper deployed in regions the government never acknowledged. Her confirmed kills were classified, but the rumors, God, the rumors, were legendary. She could hit a moving target at 1,000 yards with crosswind. She took out a convoy from a canyon wall, 3 shots, 3 kills, in under 10 seconds. She disappeared after a mission in Afghanistan that no one talked about. Some said she walked away. Others said she snapped. But none of them really knew. And now, Bryce was convinced that woman, the legend, the ghost, was sipping gas station coffee in a flannel shirt at his shooting range. He couldn't let that stand. So he arranged a friendly event. A private shoot-off. No cash prize, just pride, and the invitation list was selective. Only regulars. Only the ones who had something to prove. And he made damn sure the range buzzed loud enough for Maria to hear about it. And she did. She didn't want to go. She almost didn't. But the text came that night. And deep down, Maria knew it was true. Bryce wasn't looking for a challenge. He was looking for a scalp. And the only way to stop men like him, was to give them what they thought they wanted. So she showed up. Same flannel. Same duffel bag. Same rifle. The crowd was bigger this time. Cameras out. Live streams rolling. It wasn't just about shooting anymore. It was a spectacle. And Maria hated it. She tried to walk straight to her lane, but Bryce intercepted her near the benches. Well, 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 he said, grinning. The elusive sharpshooter returns. Maria met his eyes. You put on quite the show. Oh, this? He gestured to the crowd. Just a little club fun. You're welcome to join, of course. 5 stages. Varying distances. Moving targets. Loser doesn't speak for the rest of the day. Maria didn't respond. Or, Bryce said, voice lowering just enough, you could save yourself the embarrassment and walk away now. She smiled, not the kind that reached the eyes, but the kind that said you have no idea what you've just asked for. I'll shoot. Each stage was harder than the last. The first was a simple 100-yard precision drill. Bryce hit 4 of 5. Maria hit all 5. Second was a timed reload with elevation shifts. Bryce stumbled on the second mag. Maria finished smooth. By the third stage, moving steel plates at 300 yards, people were whispering. She hasn't missed. Is she military? Who is she? Bryce was sweating now, literally and figuratively. His form was sloppy. His breathing uneven. He knew, he was being outclassed. But his pride had no reverse gear. Stage 4 was a blind scenario. Unknown target distances. No spotters. Just instinct and math. Maria didn't blink. 5 for 5. The crowd had gone quiet, save for the occasional gasp. Bryce's entourage didn't say a word. Even Rick, the range officer, stood back, arms crossed, watching like he already knew how this would end. Then came the final stage. A cold-bore shot at 850 yards. One shot. One bullet. No second chances. It was a cruel challenge, designed to rattle. It took confidence, precision, and ice in the veins. And Bryce was betting everything on it. Because if any shot could rattle her, it was this one. He stepped up first. His shot rang out, clean, confident, but it landed just low. Close, but not enough. The metal rang with a dull thud, not the sharp ping of a perfect hit. Bryce turned, masking his disappointment with a smirk. Let's see what the legend can do. Maria stepped up slowly. Her breath was steady. Her heartbeat low. She looked through the scope and saw more than a target, she saw the highlands of Kandahar. The face of a boy no older than 19. A radio signal crackling in her ear. The last kill she ever made. She pulled the trigger. Crack. The bullet flew silent in the wind. 850 yards away, a steel plate rang out like a bell in a church. Clang. Maria lowered the rifle. She didn't look at Bryce. She didn't smile. She just picked up her bag, slung it over her shoulder, and walked past him. But as she did, she said one word, soft, just loud enough for him to hear. Sable. Bryce froze. Behind him, Rick spoke for the first time that day. I knew it. Someone in the crowd asked, who's Sable? And Rick answered, his voice quiet with reverence. A ghost from the old wars. One of ours. One of the best. Bryce's hands were trembling. Maria kept walking. She didn't want the applause. Didn't want the whispers. Didn't even want the last word. She just wanted to leave before the past pulled her back under. But it was too late. The name had been spoken. And now, the world remembered. After that day, everything changed. Maria didn't go back to Bayridge for 2 weeks. She didn't answer Colby's calls. She ignored the texts from strangers trying to confirm if it was really her. Even the military forums had lit up with whispers and theories. Is Sable alive? I thought she disappeared. Why would she show up there? The attention stirred something in her she'd buried long ago, the thing she tried so hard to escape when she left everything behind. That name, Sable, was a weight she thought she'd laid down forever. But you don't walk away from a shadow like that. You just stop casting it for a while. Then, one morning, a knock came at her door. She opened it to find Rick, the range officer, holding a paper cup of coffee and wearing a sheepish look like he wasn't sure if she'd slammed the door in his face. I figured you wouldn't come back, he said, offering the cup. Maria took it silently. But I wanted to say something, he added. That day, what you did out there. I've seen a lot of shooters. Pros. Medal winners. But that? That was something else. And not just the shooting. Maria raised an eyebrow. You didn't rub it in, he said. Didn't gloat. You walked away when most would have basked in it. That told me more than your shots ever could. She took a sip. Let the silence breathe between them. I didn't come there to prove anything, she said softly. But I guess it needed proving anyway. Rick nodded. They're not all like Bryce. You made more fans than enemies that day. She didn't respond. He hesitated. There's a junior shooting program we run. A lot of these kids, they've got discipline, but not direction. They could use someone like you. Maria gave a dry laugh. I'm not a role model. You don't have to be, Rick replied. Just, someone who knows how to breathe steady and hit what they aim for. She looked at the man. Looked through him. Not with judgment, but with the tired eyes of someone who'd heard that kind of offer before in a very different context. In a desert. In uniform. When the cost was always higher than the check. I'll think about it. Rick smiled. That's all I'm asking. After he left, Maria sat on her worn-down couch and stared at the folded flag on her mantel. She thought about the people she'd served with. The ones who didn't make it back. The ones who did, but never really came home. She thought about Bryce too. Because as it turned out, the aftermath of that final showdown didn't go well for him. Word got out fast. That he challenged a legend and lost. That he tried to humiliate her and ended up being the punchline. His social media quietly went dark. His visits to Bayridge slowed to a trickle. And by the time Maria returned 3 weeks later, walking through the front door with the same flannel shirt, same calm step, Bryce was long gone. No one said it to her face, but the tone was different now. People moved aside when she passed. Not out of fear, but respect. She walked to the far bench where a young girl was struggling with a bolt-action .22. Arms too tense, breathing shallow. Maria knelt beside her and adjusted the girl's stance with gentle hands. Don't fight the rifle, she said. Let it be an extension of you. Like you're just reaching out. The girl blinked up at her. You're that sniper, right? The one from the range match? Maria smiled faintly. I'm just Maria. The girl took the shot. Ping. Steel target. Clean hit. She beamed. From across the range, Rick nodded. Just once. And that's how it started. She never advertised. Never told stories. Never bragged. But word spread anyway. Young shooters came to her one by one. Veterans started showing up just to nod in quiet acknowledgement. No interviews. No headlines. Just a woman, a rifle, and a past that had finally stopped chasing her. As for Bryce, last she heard, he'd sold his custom rifle collection. Rumor was he'd moved to another range out in the valley. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere without ghosts. But the truth? Maria hadn't thought about him in a while. She stood on the firing line one morning, early before the sun rose, just her and the cold, and placed one bullet in the chamber of the old M40. She fired at a distant plate 1,000 yards out. The round hit dead center. No one saw it. No one clapped. But she smiled anyway. Because sometimes, the most important victories aren't loud. They're silent. Precise. And final.